in the business, and he and his wife have moved up there to Ashland, and he teaches a film class.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys for joining us. So Rachel grew up in Vermont, and she attended the University of Vermont and graduated with a BS in education. Her boyfriend's father at the time was the president of ABC, and through him, she was introduced to the entertainment world. When she graduated from college, she moved to California with that boyfriend, and he had a job as a production assistant. So she was introduced to that world, and she got to LA too late to get a job in the school system, so interviewed as an accounting clerk for an ABC in-house production company. Hold on, pause while I admit more people from the waiting room. Rachel never thought she would stay in accounting, never took it too seriously in the beginning, that first job, but eventually after leaving the business and trying other things, she found out that she really missed film production. So she decided to go back and take it more seriously, worked her way up through the ranks pretty quickly then. And she now does this freelance as her full-time job. She's married to a film editor, has no children, and 2 cats. You guys, we have some people that are not on mute. Could you mute yourselves if you're not speaking? Thank you. And then we have Janice joining us as well. Janice graduated in 2008 with her master's in accounting from University of Kansas. Her first accounting related job after school was an internship with McGladrey and Pullen, which is now RSM US LLP, and that was in Kansas City. But then after her internship, she was extended a full-time offer at the firm's Los Angeles office. Janice started as an audit associate with McGladrey, performing financial statement audits of business in the manufacturing and aerospace industries, as well as entertainment clients, whom she specifically requested to be assigned to. I think that's what I would be requesting as well, Janice. Between busy seasons, Janice performed audits of employee benefit plans and audits on behalf of the California Film Commission of television shows and feature films that were receiving tax credits from the state. After 4 exciting years, yet demanding busy seasons with McGladrey, she was looking for a career change. As a lead production accountant she'd met while auditing his television show offered her an entry-level clerk position on a sitcom, and she has since fallen in love with production accounting, where she continues to work in a dynamic environment, but with better work-life balance than public accounting. So welcome, Janice and Rachel. If you guys will just tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and how you got to be doing what you're doing today, that would be great.
Well, I think you sort of summed it up. For me, it was all a complete mistake to end up in this business, and I sort of fell into it. I was always really good at math, always a year ahead in math in school, and but I really had no interests in doing anything with it. And when and as I said, I clerked for my first job, I clerked for quite a long time, just because I had no intention of staying in the business or staying in accounting or doing anything. But the business is a little, I don't know, it sort of draws you in. If you have to, I always kind of thought of accounting as kind of a boring and sort of straightforward thing, but it's anything but boring in the entertainment world. Both Janice and I are freelance, and we work on a show-by-show basis. So we just finished up a show yesterday, and we start another one in a few weeks. And every show is different, and based on what the subject matter of the film is, the people that you're with, and that's what makes it interesting, I think.
So my story is a little bit different. I actually went to school for accounting. At the time, my dream job was to be an auditor at McGladrey and Pullen in Kansas City. So I did, and I'm from Kansas, so I did my undergrad and graduate studies in accountancy at the University of Kansas. And I landed that internship and that full-time job at McGladrey, which was my dream at the time. And I'm sure a lot of you might be headed towards the public accounting route. I I chose to transfer to the Los Angeles office because my boyfriend at the time, now husband, his whole thing was to be a filmmaker. So he wanted to move to LA. So I asked the firm to transfer me to LA. I came out here. I did public accounting for 4.5 years. Public accounting is no joke. It's very grueling, but it's very rewarding. You learn a lot. And then in my off seasons, like the 3 months out of the year where I wasn't working like 60 to 80-hour weeks, I requested to do like just some lighthearted, fun jobs, which were the entertainment tax credit audits. And those were really easy engagements. And in doing that, I met my first lead accountant who came to work every day in jeans, like torn up t-shirts and sneakers. And I was seeing that he's like, his lunches were paid every day. And he had this kitchen stocked full of like all these snacks and stuff. And I just saw like, this is weird. This guy's an accountant. That doesn't really make sense. And then I saw how much money he was making, and it just wasn't computing because I was coming to work in like full suit and like dry cleaning every week. And it was really hard. It was a hard life. And I kind of joked with him. I was like, you know, it's kind of funny that like I didn't expect an accountant to look like you. And he joked and was like, well, when you get tired of public accounting, let me know, and maybe you can come to the dark side. I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. So I, like a lot of people, got tired of public accounting, burnt out, wanted a career change. And that I got very lucky in that this guy remembered me. And when I quit public accounting, he reached out and was like, well, if you're ready, come clerk. And so like Rachel, I started out clerking, which is basically like an administrative role. It's not truly accounting. But the environment of production accounting itself is just so much fun that I knew like, oh yeah, this is my probably perma career. And that was 2014, I think, was my first clerk job. And I've been doing it since then. And it's just been a lot of fun. Before that, my only forays into film and TV, well, was really like just producing friends' short films and stuff. Because all my friends in school were either B school people or film school people. So outside of studying for accounting and everything, I would help my film school friends make short films and stuff. So I kind of was enamored with the filmmaking process. When I came out here, I just watched all my filmmaking friends get jobs here doing stuff that seemed a lot more fun, or a little bit less work than what I was doing. They had long hours, but they were less stressed. And so that's kind of what drew me to production accounting, was much better work-life balance. Yeah.
I think the thing,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the thing that a lot of people do, I mean, first off, not many people think about accounting in the entertainment business. And so many people don't understand why we have to be part of a film crew. And they kind of think of accounting as more of, you know, we're in an office building somewhere, we got our adding machine tape going and whatever. And it's really kind of, I mean, yes, that there is some truth to that, but it is a lot more. In the making of a movie, every single department has a budget, and every single department is responsible for their budget. And our job in the accounting department is to interact with all the different departments that are involved in making a movie. So, you know, we're involved with talking with wardrobe about, you know, bills that they have, or a rush check to get a particular piece of costume custom made and delivered, and all these things. We have to be part of this group because it's very, very fast paced with those sorts of things. And we need to be sort of on the spot and ready to go. And Janice and I work together, but she and I have very different functions within the department. Janice really sort of runs the show, and she deals with all the nuts and bolts of film production, accounting, and making sure that vendors get paid, and all these super rush checks. And I'm more involved with the forecasting of costs and projecting where we're headed and where we're going. And so I rely heavily on Janice doing her job and doing it quickly, so that I can take the information that she has and I can project where we're going. And I'm sure everybody's heard, the horror stories of movies that go over budget. And all of that, sometimes they go over budget on purpose and sometimes they don't, but it's our job to do our job so that we know where we're heading and where we're going. And I think I interrupt you, Sarah.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask that question, which is, can you tell us like what your jobs each entail right now? And that was
so for me, what I do is I'm one of the very first people that's hired on a film production. I am pretty much second to the producer and the director. Producers and director kind of come first. But every single, a script is read, and then a budget has to be created. And that's really what I do, is I work with the producer and to sort of create a budget. And I kind of feel like any movie can be made for any price. It just depends on what kind of movie it is that you want to make. And there's just things that you kind of don't think about as for what they're going to cost. But anyway, so like I said, it's very early on that I kind of start, and I work with a line producer, and we and you read the script, and it's kind of important to know the script, and then there's usually an assistant director who will do a schedule of the movie and a day out of days on the movie. And all of those things are elements that I take from them to help create this budget with the producer. And then it's kind of, and then once we have a budget, and once we are locked in and we're making the movie, it's my job to track it on a daily basis to see, how did we do in our filming yesterday? Did we save money? Did we go over? And so I really have to deal with it on a daily basis for tracking costs. And like I said, it's all different every single day. Like, how many extras did we have? How much overtime? How many meal penalties? How many crew people? Did we have more crew people budgeted than we are working than we had budgeted? How many grips did we have that day that were, rigging something? So that's kind of what I do. And I'll let Janice talk about what she does.
So my goal is to, I guess, track costs timely so that Rachel has the information for her to project where we are with the budget on a daily basis. So when I'm first hired onto a show, I set up the office. Rachel and I together will hire a team to assist us. And I like administratively set up the show. And then I set up accounts with vendors. So like all the prop houses, costume houses, lumber companies for construction, vehicle rental companies for our transpo team, like any vendor that we're going to touch during the show, I reach out to set up an account with them so that we don't have to pay right away with cash or a credit card, that we'll have net 30 terms with them. And then once my team comes on, the other assistants on the show, we are as a team responsible for basically bookkeeping. So when we're called production accountants or assistant production accountants, it's not accounting like what you guys are currently learning in school. It is effectively it's bookkeeping. So there's no like cost of goods sold. There's no revenue because we're fully expensed. When you're in film production, money's not coming in outside of just getting funding from the studio or from whoever your funding source is. You are fully an income statement expense show. So my job and the job of our assistants is to just keep up with paying the bills, tracking bills, making sure that all of the costs of the show are purchased or recorded via like purchase orders. So Rachel at any given time can run a report out of our accounting system and know exactly how much we're projected to spend. So my day-to-day is effectively bookkeeping and then management of the accounting team and interfacing, like Rachel said, with all the other departments. So like on every film, you're going to have props, costumes, electricians who do all the lighting, bricks, and camera department, sound. There's, I think I counted, there's like 12 or 13 different departments on every show. And we, as the assistants under Rachel, we're the ones interfacing with the departments to make sure they're getting costs into us and reporting so that we can translate that information for Rachel. So yeah, it's very different from, there's very little debits and credits. There's occasional journal entries that we do, but it's not quite what you guys are learning. I would say that this absolutely does not require any real accounting knowledge, but it does help. If you have it, it does kind of help you understand the accounting system a little bit better, but it's definitely not necessary. And definitely you don't need CPA background. You don't need your master's. It just takes organization and like a self-starter kind of attitude. Can't be lazy. And then you have to have a good personality because you're interacting with so many people. And an accounting team can be, the smallest accounting team I've worked on was 3 people. But if you're on like working on those huge Marvel shows where they're shooting all over the world, multiple locations, and I'm sure Rachel's worked on some of those, you can get up to 20 plus people on an accounting team in different locations. Not to mention,
and you can have different accounting teams in the different locations, like especially like on a Marvel movie or I've done a few Fast and Furious, and not as the main person, but as just the accountant on one unit of a Fast and Furious movie. And though, I mean, those movies are just, they're huge, absolutely huge. And so like that, again, the size of the accounting department varies depending on the nature of the movie. And so like when I started out in this business, it was me and an accountant. And now, you can have 10, 12 people on an accounting team. So
yeah, I think the smallest size show that I worked on are like sitcoms. Sitcoms are super easy because those shows are just fully contained on mostly one stage on a studio lot. So there's not a lot of extra costs shooting outside of that stage. So volume wise, there's not as much work, and you can get away with 3 people on a show like that, sometimes 2. And then I've worked on some upcoming Marvel streaming television shows, which had pieces shooting in like Prague and like New Orleans and Georgia. And then that's where you get like the bigger accounting teams. But personality is really important, because you're not just interacting with your own accounting team, you are interacting with dozens of crew members. You know, a lot of the department heads you deal with, because they're the ones that you work with to make sure they're on track with costs. And if they need to spend money, you have to facilitate that and help them, you know, contact vendors. And if they have a vendor in particular that is like, well, we don't take credit cards, we need a check in hand by 8 a.m. if you want to come pick up this prop piece. Well, I got to make that happen. So we work really closely with the creatives in each department as well. So yeah.
I think that somehow makes it very kind of rewarding in a sense, because it's not like you're processing stuff and you kind of you process things, but you also get to see the fruits of your labor by, you know, going on to set, and it's like, you know, and seeing things. There's always some object on a movie that seems to be the thing that that, you know, like it's the dress, or that, you know, that couch that had to be specially made, and or there's something. I worked on the movie Pleasantville, and we built an entire town out in Malibu, and I just remember, you know, the bill for the concrete came through for the streets and the sidewalks, but then you can go out and you can see the streets and the sidewalks, and you can see the lumber that built this town, and you can see all the things that make it kind of fun and different and special. So it's not boring. And the other thing too is, you know, the thing to mention is that we are part of the crew, and there's travel involved. I've traveled all over the United States and overseas, working on movies. When you go on location with a film, it's not like a vacation, in the sense that you're just passing through. You actually live someplace for months. You get to have your favorite coffee shop, your favorite restaurant. You get to know the local people. There's a sense of adventure, I think, in going to some new place. I've been places I never ever would have chosen to have gone, and had the most amazing and wonderful time there. So I think that makes it interesting. And the other thing too is that I really like about our job is that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like it comes to an end. Like we just finished, for us, a show yesterday, and it's boxed up, and we turn it over to the studio, and somebody else is going to take it through post-production, and we just kind of get to, you know, dust off our hands and move on. So
yeah, what Rachel was saying, like a huge perk, and what really makes this job more than just bookkeeping is the fact that you're working in a dynamic environment. Every, I would say, 6 months to a year, you're on a whole new show with all new crew, maybe a new accounting team. So you've got all new coworkers. Maybe you would have gone from like a TV show to a horror film, and then to like a Will Ferrell comedy. It's really different. And every show has its own flavor. The crew is different from every show, so that the environment is very different. And then you start to run into the same people. Like you keep running into the same prop master that you really like working with, or this costume designer who just drives you crazy. So while there's a lot of people in Hollywood, it's kind of funny because it's still such a small world of people who get hired and rehired. But yeah, Rachel said it's a big plus, like the fact, especially in television. So I started my career in television, and TV frequently will have a stage or two dedicated to just that show. And I would have a lot of free time, so I just go visit set, watch them shoot. And it was kind of cool because at the beginning of every show, unless you're working on a Marvel show, you get the full script. And for television, you get the full script for every episode. And you start to see the things that you're paying for on the set. You start to see like the costs actually show up. And they also give you the script too. It's like for auditing purposes. So, you can see what to expect, what kind of money to expect to be spending. Like Rachel said, if there's like some dress, that's a very key component to the script. You have to expect that at some point we're going to be getting a purchase order or a bill for this dress. And Rachel's keeping that in mind, that, if she doesn't see that cost come in, she might come to me and say, hey, like, this key piece is missing. Can you follow up with that department to find out what's going on with that? So we get to see the film being made, but we're also, along with the producers, the only ones who know fully the cost of the film, because that's generally a pretty big secret, because every department only knows their own budget.
A big secret that everybody wants to know, and they keep trying to get it out of us.
Yeah, do you guys have some sort of, contract that you sign that you can't release information about what's going to happen in the script or costs?
Most every film has to sign an NDA, which everybody in the crew has to sign, not just us. I think there's nothing specific to accounting, but it's kind of, it's a given that that's not something you talk about. And although my team all get to see the budget, they need to see the budget for coding purposes of things. It's kind of on their first day. I tell them, this is your first warning that, that this is never discussed. And if there's a second warning, you're fired. So, I mean, and it's not like that's what you want to tell people on their first day, but I mean, it is very much guarded information. And eventually things come out in like People magazine, Adam Sandler's $50 million movie or whatever. And once it's in People magazine, I don't mind talking about it because I figure it's already out there. But during the course of making a movie, it's a very well guarded piece of information. But I was also going to say, for me, it gets interesting in the sense that in projecting costs, and you do have a very important role in the making of a movie. I worked on, I was the controller on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Quentin Tarantino does not believe in visual effects. And if you saw the movie, you know that it's a period piece. And so Quentin really wanted everything to be real and not, he didn't want to use CGI or any kind of visual effect to paint a background of LA in the 60s. And we shot a lot on Hollywood Boulevard, and it was very, very expensive. And it literally is where myself and the art department and all the different departments we basically came up with a cost for every single block that we were thinking of filming on Hollywood Boulevard to figure out how we were going to, what we could cut, what he had to have, what he really wanted to see. So you are involved in the process of making the movie, and it's an ongoing process, even though you've agreed on a budget and this is what it's going to cost. If all of a sudden you start going over, then you need to start looking at things that you can cut from the script to bring costs down, to try to get things back more in line. So it does have a very significant part in the overall filmmaking, and you do contribute quite a bit in the process of making a movie.
Do you guys, is it okay if we take a few questions now?
Sure.
Okay, so I think we'll try to just do this where if you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask. And if it gets too backed up, then I'll try to help in some ways. You can type something in the chat also if you don't want to speak up, and I can ask them. So anyone have a question?
I kind of have a fun-ish question. What's the most crazy thing you've ever had to budget for? And also, like, what was a time where you just had to be like, no, that can't happen ever?
I never say no, it can't happen. That's not my job. So my job is to provide information to the producers so that they can say no, that can't happen. So I'm kind of, my job, I work hand in hand with what they call the line producer, who's the more of the financial producer. There's also producers that are creative producers, and I work more with the line producer, who's a more financial person. And it's my job to talk to him. It's his job to talk to the studios and to the director, and for them to kind of come up with a plan. So it's my job to try to be as accurate as possible about things. Like I said, in the Quentin Tarantino movie, for us to really break down, this block is going to cost you this, and this is going to cost you that, and he wants to be in front of that building. So we know we need that block. So like I said, I am not the person that says no, which is great because I don't like that. As far as the craziest thing, I don't know. I don't know that there's necessarily been a craziest thing I've ever had to budget. I think the most fun thing was that I had to go to Iceland to budget on one of the Fast and Furious movies, because that's where the producers were. And I was budgeting for something that was going to happen in Cleveland, but I had to go to Iceland because that's where the producers were. So I got 6 weeks in Iceland just to work on a budget. And I was like, and it was the middle of winter. And I'm like, this is the last place I want to go is Iceland in the middle of winter. It was the best experience. I've loved it. It was so fantastic. And that's the fun thing, is you go, I can't believe I'm going to Iceland in the middle of winter. And then it was great. So anyway.
I don't know. I think my whole thing was coming into it was maybe just being a little bit naive and not realizing the exorbitant amount of money that Hollywood spends on making any size show, really. I mean, everything costs so much, everything. I think the thing that keeps surprising me over and over again is costumes. And I mean, everything costs a lot of money, but things that you wouldn't expect to cost a lot of money, like like regular everyday clothes for a character that is not particularly wealthy, they still go and shop at places like Barney's and like just think it floors me when I see like, okay, this character who's like a teenage girl and she's wearing like a pair of like $800 jeans. And this is not like a rich, the character's not rich at all. So when I see that, it still continually blows my mind. But everything costs so much money. And then there's been cases where I work on shows, and in particular, one sitcom that I think of, a very well-known sitcom, there was an actor who we bought for his character a suit jacket, and it was like a $600 suit jacket, which I guess is not crazy expensive. But again, he's like a regular everyday guy in the show, right? Well, this actor wasn't happy with the suit jacket, and we had to go and replace it with like a $3,500 suit jacket because he wanted to keep it after the show. He wanted to walk away with it. So like things like that were just kind of, it's not necessarily like we specifically budgeted for that jacket, but just everything costs so much money. You think you could just shop at like, I don't know, like Macy's or JCPenney or something for some of these characters because that's where these characters would shop in real life. But no, we're getting their clothes from high-end retailers like boutiques in Beverly Hills, and it just blows me out of the water every time when I see it.
So here's a question that's in the chat that's kind of along those lines. How do you manage a department or person in a department that keeps trying to spend more than they are budgeted for?
For me, I have a pretty good sense about, quite frankly, like every department has a budget that they're responsible for. So and I personally don't care how much they spend on particular items, as long as when it's all said and done, they're within their budget. So set dressing may spend an enormous amount of money on a couch, but as long as they come in. So I mean, it's just conversations that I have with them. I do have a pretty, having done this over the years, I have a pretty good sense about a person or a department as to whether or not I feel they're on track. And then if I feel that they're not on track, I pretty much raise the red flag to them, but also to the line producer, that I feel that this department is going to be a problem. And it's their job and my job to help rein them in.
Rachel was saying at the beginning, like we lock budgets and then every department has their own budget. Frequently I see that the budget that the department has is not truly what we've budgeted for them. It's usually lower, so that we've built in a cushion for them, expecting them to go over a little bit. Like I've definitely worked on shows where like there was a locations department where we knew this locations manager had a reputation for kind of not keeping track of his costs very well. So the budget that he was given was artificially lower than what the true budgeted amount was for his department. And that was just to help him try to keep things lower, because we knew he was going to blow it either way.
I have a group of questions that are all kind of in the same theme. Are you employees of a studio or independent contractors? And then what's the salary range and benefits? And how would somebody get their foot in the door or do an internship in this line of work? That's a lot, so.
What was the first part? I'm sorry, the first.
Independent contractors or studio?
We are freelance. We are not employees of a studio. We are freelance employees, which means we go show to show. We belong to a union, in the entertainment business, and based on the number of hours we work, it goes towards pension, health, and welfare. So there's we have it's what it's everybody in the entertainment business usually belongs to a union, and those unions provide health benefits and pension and all those different things. And the salaries are varied. You know, you start off as a clerk, and I don't care who comes with a master's degree in accounting. Everybody starts as a clerk because the job is very unique and different, and you really have to start at the bottom. And that's a minimum wage job. That's $15 an hour. Then, you know, you just kind of, if the more you know and the faster you learn, you can actually move up pretty quickly, and get paid more than minimum wage. So
Yeah, clerking, hopefully you don't do that more than a year. It's like administrative work. You're filing and stuff like
answering
that.
phones.
Yeah, but it is, as long as you are learning and have a good personality, you can move up really quick. At least up to my level, I feel like you can move up pretty quick. To get up to Rachel, which is a step or two above me, there's fewer of those positions available, and hers is a lot more big picture. So you have to know more of big picture stuff. So yeah, but there's a big pay range between the lowest level clerk and the controller or line producer on the film.
But I will say one thing about, there's an awful lot of job security with what we do. People do not get into the film industry to go into accounting. And I think there just aren't that many of us. And people tend to get into this business because they have creative things. They want to be a director or a DP or whatever. But because there's so few of us, there's a high demand for us. And I've never not worked when I wanted to work. I maybe a week or two of having to look for a job, but I would say COVID was the first time that things just weren't happening. And now things are starting to come back in the COVID world. So
how that there's another question that relates to that. How do you secure those jobs, or go from, like, do you have a calendar that you build out with different studios that says, here's when I'm free, and like, how do you book show to show to show?
For myself, it's really my relationships with the studios. You know, usually there's a few studios that I work mostly with, and then over the years also I have relationships with line producers, and they will call me and check on my availability. So it's a combination for me of working with studios and line producers, and them checking on my availability. And then, you know, I'll let Janice speak for herself, but there's also the payroll company. Usually the payroll company, there's two major payroll companies that also provide the software that we use in the business. They often act a lot as job referrals. They know shows that, are finishing up that have crew people. We check with them a lot of times to know, like, who do you know that's coming available, and resumes get sent to us and things like that. Janice, how do you kind of, I mean, I don't remember how I ever hooked up with you, how I got your resume, but anyway.
It's actually, your reputation matters a lot in this industry, who you know, who you've worked with, and your reputation as far as your work history will follow you. So Rachel, I think how I got introduced to you was I was wrapping Jack Ryan, and the post accountant, or one of the assistant post accountants, knew you. And I guess you were looking for someone, and she just
Yeah, she recommended you.
forwarded. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
like, it's, I was just lucky in that I didn't have to seek out Rachel. Someone who had a good experience with me thought of me. And when Rachel reached out asking for help, this person was like, "Hey, Rachel, I just worked with Janice. She was cool. Why don't you consider her?" And then Rachel interviewed me, and it worked out. But I think the most important and most reliable way to get jobs in this industry is your networking and your reputation. So if you do well, and like if you look at Rachel's IMDb and you look at her resume, like, Rachel's good. So Rachel will never have trouble getting hired. And it helps if you have a good reputation, because then you don't have to look for work. People, just by spreading your name around, work will come looking for you, which is really helpful in a freelance world, because it is scary if you're not finding work. You can be unemployed. I've heard of people being unemployed for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months at a time. But I've also been very fortunate that since I started in 2014, COVID was the only time that I didn't have work. So if you do get into this industry, you definitely want to work hard, and within reason, like, have a good personality and be a team player. Don't do anything illegal.
And anybody that's really good, like, I mean, I know for myself, if there's somebody that's in my department that's really good and works really hard, you really want to help them, move forward. Like, we just finished up this last show. We had this clerk who, first time working in the entertainment business. It was really short. He didn't really get that much exposure to film production accounting, but he had an amazing attitude and really worked hard and really always positive, always whatever. He's already got his next gig. He's starting on Monday on a feature. And so, and that's because, Janice helped him reach out to this production company that was looking for someone, and you just hear of stuff.
So it's 1:20, and some students may have class at 1:30. So if they need to jump off, that's okay. I have 2 more questions if you guys are okay with just a couple more minutes. One that I think people are interested in, you said the way to start is clerk, but how would they go about finding those jobs if they wanted to get into this industry?
Like I said, there are 2 payroll companies. One is called Entertainment Partners. They're in Burbank. The other is called Cast and Crew. I think they're in Burbank also. Both of those companies usually have somebody who is kind of gathers resumes and sends them out. So getting in touch with those people, also getting in touch with the film board. There's a California film board, and I think most states have film commissions. And being in touch with the film commission and letting them know, this is what you'd like to do. Janice, what do you suggest?
So there is a website called Emily Rice, It's a woman's name. She's a production accountant in this industry, and she has taken upon herself to create a like job listings website where people like Rachel and I, when we're looking for people, we'll post to that site, and then people will usually say like, hey, we are looking for a clerk in Los Angeles from March to October. Here's the email address, send in your resumes. And so if you just Google Emily Rice listing, I think it's the first thing that pops up on Google. That's just a job listing for
RICE?
for this particular.
And it's Rice, like the food, RICE.
Okay.
And then
Emily Rice.
right. And also on Facebook, there are two unofficial groups. One of them is called LA Production Accountants. And then the other one is called Film and TV Accountants. They're private groups on Facebook, but you can request to be added. And I see job listings posted there all the time. The other way is just to know someone who does production accounting already. And that usually they can get you at least like a clerk starting somewhere. Because this industry is, like Rachel said, we're in high demand. And so it's constantly hiring. But I think, and then that, like Rachel said, the two payroll companies, there are a couple marketing and salespeople at those payroll companies who handle resumes and will distribute them when people like Rachel or I go to those payroll companies and say, hey, we're looking for a second assistant, and you give me resumes, and they'll give it to us. But definitely the two Facebook groups, LA Production Accountants and Film and TV Accountants, and the Emily Rice listing, those are good for especially starting.
Yeah, those are really good. And I just want to add that our last two clerks were people right out of college with an accounting background, and they have both gone on to work on other shows. So it happens.
Aside from COVID, this is a job that you need to be in person to do mostly, right? It's not a remote.
Well, it's best. We just did this last thing remotely, and although we did it wasn't fun. So, I mean, part of the job is also, with any job, is the camaraderie, working with people, and being part of a team. And it was a little hard being kind of at home. We did it, but I was really glad that I already knew Janice, so I wasn't sitting at home worrying about if something was getting done or not getting done, because I know how she works and I know how responsible she is. But and the same with the other our payroll person. So that was good. I think it would be a little bit more difficult not knowing somebody and not knowing how they were working.
I will say working remotely is, it kind of takes the fun out of this career, just because, a major part of this is being close to set and working in person with all of those creatives. And when you're working remotely, I mean, this is no different from working remotely on any other job, I feel like at this point.
Right.
Janice, are you a CPA? I think I missed that. Did you ever get licensed?
So I want to say this outside of production accounting, for those of you who plan to be CPAs, as soon as you're finished with school, start studying for those exams before you go into your career. I tried to sit for the exams while I was working in public accounting, and I got through 2 of the 4. It's just especially if you go into public accounting, you do not have time to study. So if you're going to go for that CPA license, try to do it before you get started working, just because it's insane in public accounting. But no, I got through half the exams and got just too busy with work So I never finished, but it's absolutely not necessary in this field. Yeah.
Okay. The one question is your favorite films or shows that you've worked on, but we'll end with that one. So somebody asked about the post-production, and you've said a little bit about this, that it sounds like there's another team of accountants that come on for post-production, and you guys are just kind of done after production. Is that right?
That's correct.
And they track the
there's
revenue
and those people tend to be more connected to the studio. So we hand things over to them, and they take it through post-production, which involves more of the editing, the music, the visual effects. Those are all, even those people are on during production, the focus really becomes more about them once we finish filming. And we are strictly, we're on about 6 weeks after filming finishes, just to clean up the books, and then we hand it over to post accounting.
Do you guys, just one more that just came in, are there internship opportunities as a clerk that you know of?
I don't. I mean, there's really, to me, I mean, I think these days you still have to be paid to be an intern. So there's really no difference in my mind between being an intern and being a clerk, because that is kind of what the clerk is.
Okay.
I think. So.
And then last, because it is 1:30, so we should let you guys go. Favorite projects that you've worked on?
You know what? There's a bunch for me. I did 2 Rush Hour movies, and I really enjoyed those immensely, because I have to say Jackie Chan is one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he's very personable, and he comes with an army of people, and you kind of became like part of this Jackie Chan family, and that was really sort of fun. I think Pleasantville was a really fun movie to work on, because it was a unique concept. And even though it was horrible in the theaters, Land of the Lost was really fun to work on, because just the set dressing was amazing in that movie, and it was so incredibly creative, and to go on stage and look at these sort of wild things was just really fun.
I think for me, my fondest memories, like my first show was this awful sitcom called Sullivan and Son. But it had some actors in it that I kind of grew up watching, which was kind of fun. And on a sitcom, like I had access to set every day, and I had a lot of free time as a clerk. So I spent a lot of time on set, just hanging out and kind of getting to watch the whole filmmaking process. So that is a fond piece in my heart. But more recently, the movie Bombshell, which was the Roger Ailes Fox News story with the Me Too movement, that for me was really special, because I thought it was good for the social environment that this film was being made. But also it was amazing to watch the transformation of Charlize Theron and Nicole Kidman, like getting into makeup every day and just watching them transform into these women who, it was uncanny to see them, especially Charlize Theron's character. She looked just like the real life character. And so I thought that was my proudest film to be a part of, was Bombshell, I thought.
That's great. Thank you both so much. You might have an influx of clerks now if you have.
That's fantastic. Well, I hope this has been, I hope your students have enjoyed this.
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I definitely have. And we had some great questions. So I really appreciate your time. And, good luck on all that you're working on right now. And thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.